Welcome to our discussion about CSS. So, what is actually a CSS? A CSS is cascading style sheets, and the important words there are the words style sheets. But before we actually go to the meaning of cascading and then style sheets, what is a CSS used for? HTML is used as your language for web page. And we can actually consider your HTML as the skeleton of your web page. But your HTML can somewhat be boring if that is all there is in your web page. And so CSS comes in and acts like a makeup of your HTML. So your HTML is like a skeleton or probably even a body or a face, and your CSS is a makeup that brings life, that brings designs, that brings colors. It can changes the sizes of the font. It can add thickness or thinness of your tables. You can add borders. You can adjust the width. You can adjust the margins. You can adjust almost everything in CSS. And so your web page now becomes more pleasing to the eye, and a lot of people will like to look at your web page. So basically, CSS is for design. So going back, what is cascading style sheets? Cascading is like a waterfall wherein it flows from the top until the bottom. And then the bottom is actually, we can consider that as more important than the ones at the top. Now, for example, we have descriptions like sorry, size is equal to 12 pixels. We have color is equal to blue. And then we have text transform is equal to capital. Okay, so let us assume, for example, that the size, the color, and text transform is about fonts. So we are expecting that the size will be 12, so it's quite small. Then the color will be blue, and then they are in capital letters. But what happens if I place color is equal to yellow here? And this is a CSS, for example, cascading. What happens is that your color blue will be overridden by your color yellow. So whatever is at the bottom part of that cascading style sheet, that will be the one that will be followed by the HTML or your web page. Okay, so that is the importance of the word cascading. Now, style sheets. Style sheets, again, it is a design of your web page. So they are basically your adjectives into your nouns of HTML. To have a better understanding of how we will gonna use our CSS, we actually are going to access W3 schools. That is very helpful. That is very helpful for HTML. That is very helpful for CSS, for JavaScript, for a lot of things. So if we go to your favorite browser, so for me it is Firefox, w3schools.com, and then we go to CSS here. And then as we can see at this part, there are a lot of things that are about CSS. So in our discussion for now, let us focus on the send access. We will also go to your how to, the selectors. We will skip that for now, but that is important as well. Now, for CSS syntax, as we can see here, we have what you call as the selector, the property, and the value. Now, later in our discussion, we will talk about the three types of CSS, and each type has its own usefulness, and that you cannot substitute one from the other. But all of these types use the basic CSS syntax, which is the selector, the property, and the value. Now, the selector is similar to your tags, okay? So, for example, you want to edit or you want to give a makeup for your H1, then you call that h1 in a CSS file or in a CSS tag or whatever, and then that is what you call as a selector. And then once we place that selector, your property, we will call whatever kind of format we want to change that h1 to, and then your property has what we call as a property value. Okay, later in our discussion, we will talk about how we will actually implement this in your web page. So, like I said, we already have three types of CSS. So the three ways on how to insert your CSS are external CSS, internal CSS, and inline CSS. Your external CSS is used for multiple HTML. For example, there are multiple web pages, but you only want to control them and design them using one CSS file. You use external CSS. Now, if we only want to design a specific HTML file, we use internal CSS. And if we want to edit only one tag or groups of tag in your HTML file, then we use inline CSS. Your inline CSS has the top priority over your internal CSS and your external CSS. If you don't get that, it's okay. We will discuss it further as we go along. So, for now, this is the end of our discussion. Please go to our next topic. Our next topic will be external CSS. Thank you.